Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be talking about my predictions for each of the three awards for the upcoming AFL season. I'll be talking about the Brownlow medal and who may finish top three, as well as the vote count that I think might happen, the Coleman medal, and also who might finish top 10. And I've done a little goal prediction, and then the Rising Star, which is probably the least important, and I'll start with it, but I've also got who may finish top 10 in that. So, as I said, we'll start with the Rising Star medal. I think it's the most relevant out of all of these. And it just, in terms of career wise, has very little impact on your resume. I've got Harley Reid winning it. It's not a bold call. I don't think it needs to be a bold call this year. The last 2 years, if Ashcroft didn't get injured, he probably wins it. We know Dacos won it. And I just think often it does go to the most popular player. And I think that's going to be Harley Reid. I think the midfield time he will play will be a little bit of a benefit with him over a couple players like Riley Sanders. And I just think that the impact he will have in a really poor West Coast side, it won't matter the winning. It never does with this award, or it never should. And I just think he'll probably have the best season. I think he's the most ready-made body out of all the rookies, and that will really help him to start with. Second, I've got Elijah Tsardas from Essendon. I think the second year in the system will definitely boost his chances, and just the way Essendon need a midfielder similar to how he plays, I think will also boost his chances. He probably has less of a chance of winning it than someone like Riley Sanders or George Wardlaw, but I also think he'll just poll really well because he is a bit of a brute midfielder, and that's always a great thing to watch. Third, I've got Riley Sanders. I think with the loss of Bailey Smith and Jack McRae not necessarily being a pure midfielder anymore, it opens up a space for him. He'll probably be mixing time in the midfield with someone like Adam Treloar, and he'll just take the rest of the minutes that are available. And I think what he showed in the preseason game is great signs, and he will be an absolute piece in the future for the Bulldogs. Fourth, I've got George Wardlaw. He's probably a lot of people's favourites, but I just think it's very tough to predict with him because there are a lot of midfield options already at North Melbourne. We've got LDU, Simpkin, Shees will be playing a bit more there. We've got Tom Powell. There's a lot of options, and for him to break in there, it's going to be really difficult, and he also might not stay healthy. So I've got him at fourth because I just don't think the total impact he will have is going to be greater than someone like Elijah Tsardas. Fifth, I've got Jed Walter. Before his shoulder injury, I had him probably top three in my chances because I'm a huge fan of his, and I think the way Gold Coast might play, he'll be a huge benefactor of it. But now that he's got his shoulder injury, it might take him a bit more time to get himself ready into the season. And if Casbolt, King, and Lukosius as a big three in the forward line under Hardwick works, then it might be tough for him to break into the team. Sixth, I've got Darcy Wilson. I just think with the way Mateus Philippou played last year, he'll fill that role. He'll play a bit more on the outside than what a lot of other players on this list will. And I think he'll just be the silkiest player on this list, and it's a bit of a homer pick. Seventh, I've got Colby McKercher. It's very similar with Wardlaw. It's just, is he going to be a midfielder? Is he going to be a halfback? It's going to be very difficult for him to fit in, but I just don't know if he'll have the impact and he might struggle early on. Eighth, I've got Curtin, simply because he's going to be played as a key defender from what I've heard, and it's very difficult for key position players, especially defenders, to be polling well. Ninth, I've got Nick Watson, just because I think he might be the lower of options for Hawthorn and in their forward line. They've already got Luke Bruce, they've got Jack Ginnivan, and it might take a little while for him to mesh with those two in that forward line. They've also got Dylan Moore, so when he gets back, he's probably going to be the third, if not the fourth, small forward option. And so he might even be not getting games if 2022 Jack Ginnivan returns. In 10th, I've got Sam Darcy. It's just, where does he play? That's the real problem with me. Does he play as a key forward? Does he play as a key back? Does he play as a ruckman, more of a backup ruckman, unless English gets injured? It's just tough to pin him into one spot. So that's my top 10. Now I'll move on to the Coleman medal. I've got Curnow winning it. Simple as that. It's just the way Carlton utilise him, really. I don't see anyone properly challenging him for it. I don't think Walker will be able to do as much as he did last year because I just think other players will break out and there'll be less opportunity for him. And I just don't think Jeremy Cameron will be able to sustain it in a Geelong team that probably won't be good enough as well. So I've got him kicking 79 goals. It's two less than what he kicked last year, which was 81, but I'm not sure if that counts with finals goals, which would be 78 with what he finished with. Second, I've got Nick Larkey. It's just with the way North Melbourne might have to set up with very few key defenders. If they want any chance of winning games, it might just have to be where they try score and score and score and use the midfielders they have to just break games as open as possible. And if that's the case and they do end up being more high scoring, similar to like what Hawthorn might do with Mitch Lewis, I could see him easily kicking over 70 goals again as the only true number one key forward. Third, I've got Max King. It's sure a bit of a Saints pick, but it is time for him to break out. It's going to be his sixth season in the AFL, I believe, and that should be when he decides to break out. He obviously had the shoulder injuries to deal with last year, but I think now that he is fully fit in the preseason, he looked really good. He looked really physical against Essendon, which is a really important sign, and I think he'll get really close to that 70 goal range. Fourth, I've got Jeremy Cameron, and as I said earlier, I just don't think Geelong will be good enough for him to sustain being able to kick 3 goals a game. I just think it'll be too much for him, and he has shown last year that if he does get injured, it's hard for him to get back to his best quickly. Fifth, I've got Mitch Lewis. I think him and Tex Walker will tie with 64 goals at 5 and 6. It's just going to be difficult for him because we don't know if he's going to play every game. He struggled with that, but if he does, he's always on track for 60 plus goals. And it also depends on how Hawthorn play and how fast they want to move the ball under Sam Mitchell, not Tom. That's an ex-Hawthorn player. They both are, but yeah, you get it. Seventh, I've got Oscar Allen. He's going to be like a similar season to what Nick Larkey did for North Melbourne last year, but I don't think he'll necessarily get to the heights because I think he does too much outside of purely being a goal kicker for them. Eighth, I've got Toby Green on 60 goals. I just see him taking a slight step back from last season. I think that was like his absolute best. And for him to do that 2 seasons in a row is going to be really taxing. And I just don't see the reliance on him being as big as it was last year. Ninth, I've got Ben King. I'm a huge fan of his. I really hope he does come to St Kilda eventually, but he did sign a 2-year deal, so good for him. But I think under Hardwick, he will absolutely shine, and he's got 1 season under his belt from the ACL injury. 10th, I've got Charlie Cameron. I just think you need a Brisbane player on this list. It was a big toss-up between him and Joe Danaher, and there's every chance they tie on 57 realistically. They are just a super offensive team, and they score with ease. Now, for the Brownlow medal, I will be going in reverse order. I've got my top 10, and I'll be going from 10 to 1 instead of 1 to 10 like I did with the Coleman and Rising Star. In 10th, I have Caleb Sarong. I've got him polling 25 votes and just really continuing his excellent form from last season. I think it's a contest between him and Brayshaw as the best midfielder for Fremantle, but I think the fact that Sarong's more the in and under type midfielder, it just puts him a slight bit above Brayshaw, who's more of the outside midfielder. I've got a tie from 6th to 9th. I've got Butters, Neil, Anderson, and Petrarca. Petrarca, they're all on 26 votes. I'll just put it first. Petrarca, I just think he always polls well because he's that mid-forward type that everyone loves. He's what you need in a premiership team. Every premiership team has one. And I just see him, without Oliver, not necessarily reaching the heights you would think he would. But I just think Viney has polled really well in the last 2 seasons. Max Gawn being the number 1 ruckman, they'll still pull votes from him and not necessarily make him top 5. And I just think it's going to be so close. And given the fact that everyone else in Melbourne's midfield is still so elite, I just think it'll take a couple votes away from him. 8th, I've got Noah Anderson. I'm a huge fan of this guy. I think the way he plays and the way Dimmer wants his system to work, it'll mesh really well. He polled quite well last year, but that was more in a stretch of games rather than consistently throughout the whole season. And I see him doing that a bit more this year. I just think he can very easily poll over 25 votes this year. And I think he's probably going to be the centerpiece to build around for Gold Coast in the future. 7th, I've got the reigning Brownlow medal winner, Lockie Neal. I just think it's going to be more of a shared load for Brisbane this year. I think by the time Ashcroft gets back and when he's fit and firing, he's going to be really important. Josh Dunkley is another one. And I think Hugh McCluggage, more importantly, will play a lot more midfield time and take some votes away from him. I also think they've got a lot more players who have broken out. Someone like Keenan Coleman or Zach Bailey will get a lot more votes as well than what they did last year. So I've got him taking a slight step back. And then 6th, who the last person who tied for this position was Zach Butters. Again, similar to Noah Anderson, a lot of his votes were also in that stretch where they won 13 games. And for Port Adelaide to do that again and him to poll votes in almost all those games, it'd just be ridiculous. But I still think he has super potential. He reached very close to that last year, and I've got Port Adelaide taking a slight dip, and that'll slightly affect his polls as well. But I think he'll be more well-rounded throughout the season. In 5th, I've got Jordan Dawson on 27 votes. A lot of people have Adelaide finishing in the top 8, and I've also seen quite a lot putting them in the top 4 as that team who breaks into it from last season, because that's what happened almost every year. But I just think that's a step too far. I don't think they have the defenders to support the higher teams and how they might play against Adelaide. And even with that, I just think Jordan Dawson being a full-time midfielder, he'll get a lot of votes, but he might struggle in games where Adelaide don't win because teams that do beat Adelaide are going to be the higher rated teams, and he won't get enough 3-vote games in there to be able to win it. 4th, I've got Tom Green. I think he is an absolute ripping chance at this year if GWS continue to be successful. I think it's a wait and see with them because I'm just not fully convinced with their stupidly good back half of the season last year. I think they rely on a lot of youth, and I think they relied on a ruckman who hasn't shown enough in more than a season to be able to rely on him to do the same again for an entire season this year. But I think the talent of Tom Green is super, and the fact that he just picks up so many disposals is what a lot of the umpires want and what they give votes for. And so I think he just polls really well for that scenario. 3rd, I've got Errol Goulden on 30 votes. Just improves again. He is so good. He's so silky. And it was a bit pretentious for him to not get more votes than just one against Melbourne last year to potentially win it. He wouldn't have because Neil got the 3 votes in the final game anyway, but he probably would have finished top 3. Thankfully, he didn't because I won a bit of money. Yay! And anyway, I just think he is a super player and every chance to finish top 3. And then first, I have a tie. Now, a lot of people have been predicting this in past seasons, and I just think this year might be the year. I know everyone says that, and I know it's very cliche, but oh well, get over it. It's my opinion. I get to do what I want. It's Dacos and it's Bontempelli, the 2 best players in the game right now. Bontempelli always polls pretty well, but the fact that the Bulldogs haven't been as successful in the past couple of seasons just meant that he hasn't gotten enough 3-vote games to be able to contend properly. But I think the Bulldogs probably really, really challenge for the 8 this season. And then Dacos, again, just with Collingwood and their system, he always excels. He doesn't need to push too much. He's just able to play in the flow of their game style. and it just works. He picks up 35 disposals with ease every second night, and he's just a super player. I don't think he'll get to the same heights as he did last year, because I think the fact that he was so surprisingly good for a second-year player meant a bit more of an impact in terms of the media and his popularity, and I just think that'll slightly go back. So I don't see him getting to potentially a record-breaking 36. I've got him slightly back at 32. So those are my predictions. I've got a tie in the Brownlow with Bontempelli and Dacos. I've got Charlie Curnow taking out the Coleman again, and Harley Reid winning the Rising Star. If you have any different predictions, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to see them. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It really helps with my video in the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.